Alright guys, welcome back. Well, I want to look at these magazines a little closer. I've already done an unboxing. I'm going to compare it to the older KCI mag. This has actually been loaded. I bought it a few months after Sandy Hook. So it's been about 3 years now or so it's been loaded. I'm going to unload it. Compare the spring to, apparently these are the new springs. These do still run. I had 3 of them. One of them ran in a Glock 23 with a 9mm conversion barrel in it. Had a stovepipe. I'm gonna say that was the gun, not the magazine. This was a brand new G17 OEM Glock mag. I put a Vickers base plate on it. Never ran it. It's been loaded ever since I've had my Glock 34. So it's been a couple of years. I'm going to take the rounds out of it, compare it to the standard. I will take you down and show you there are some differences in the two magazines. So I'm going to unload these real quick. Alright, so I got them unloaded. This was the older KCI mag. There are noticeable differences, so I will not have to mark them. Bullets came out just fine. They didn't seem too weak like it would cause a failure. I can tell that this one is definitely a little weaker than, yeah, you can tell. This is a lot stiffer spring. Yeah, when we go down below, I'll show you there are some physical differences in the magazines. This is their new 17 rounder. Pretty good spring in it. OEM is still just a little stiffer. I mean, like maybe 5% stiffer. So I'm gonna take you down below here, and we're gonna show you these two magazines. All right, so let's start with the 33 rounders here. This one is the older one. I will point out some differences. It's got these little holes up top. The metal is a little lighter, a little shinier. The base plates look a little different. Here's a little shinier. Here's a little more matte. You can tell this one doesn't have any holes. From what I can tell, the followers are pretty similar. One thing to point out, this little part right there seems a little thicker on the plastic. But everything else looks about the same, even the magazine release cutout. Does lock in pretty well. Alright, so this does have the little holes like the older 33 rounder. Metal looks a little duller. They do have both have steel reinforced feed lips. Yeah, everything else looks actually identical right here. And I do believe it would take any aftermarket base plates. Everything else looks about the same, except for when you get to the cutouts. It's not as deep. I mean, you're not seeing the metal, which it really doesn't matter. But on both sides, the cutouts look a little more shallow. I haven't actually put this in a gun yet. Just drop free. See, it doesn't have that clickiness. See what I'm saying? But if it stays in the gun, I don't see no big issue with it. So go back up top and I'm going to show you how to load this sucker. Alright, so I'm going to talk about the guns first that I'm going to actually be testing these with. I was originally going to do my Glock 34. I don't have a problem with it, but like my mom and my stepdad shot it, they kind of limp-wristed it a little bit, and it was a little less forgiving than when they shot the Glock 19. It just seems like there's more weight in the slide of a Glock 19. It's weird, even though the slides are completely different in length. When they did that cutout, it just seems there's not enough power to push it forward. So I may eventually get like a 1 or 2 pound stronger spring and test that out. But we're gonna use the G19, and everything works just fine in it. Even the 50 rounder doesn't want to come out very well. But I'm gonna show you how to load this thing. There's a ratcheting system. If you look right there in the front, if you can look, it might be kind of far away. The follower goes down, so it's around over here. What you're gonna do is just push it, drop it in, push it, drop it in, till you get your 50 rounds in it, and that's pretty much it. One thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reload these 33 rounders, and I'm gonna see how they fit in the gun fully loaded. I do know that the original one, it kind of expanded a little bit and you kind of had to pull it out, so I'm going to try that on the new one and see if it does the same thing. Alright, so I loaded them back up. This is the older style. Does have just a slight hint of resistance. This is like no resistance whatsoever. So I don't know if they changed the thickness of the metal, the kind of the metal, or whatever else, but even when I first got these, I noticed that there was a little bit of a catch. Their 17 rounder seems just fine. Chamber's just fine. Their new 33 rounder seems good to go. So all that's left is to get these to the range, and I'm gonna test their older one. This is a different one. This is the one that I showed you earlier. This is the one that's been loaded the same rounds for 3 years. I want to test this one, and then I want to test their new one. I shouldn't see no issue with either of them. I want to test their 17 rounder, and I want to test their 50 round drum, all out of a G19. So there you go, and here comes the range footage. Alright, so we're going to be testing some of these magazines. We're going to start out with the 17 rounder. Might be a little wind noise, but it'll be alright. Locks back. Alright, we're going to switch over to the 33 rounder that I've had loaded for a few years. Alright, so here's the 33 rounder. Has been loaded a few years. As you can see, it's got the holes that I was talking about. It looks a little different than the newer ones. Let's see how weak the spring has gotten. Like I said, I've had these loaded since about 4 or 5 months after Sandy Hook, so that's been a little bit. Not quite chambered. It did lock back. I might have just been shooting a little too quick. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to switch over to the new one. All right, DeMontre's going to bust out this new. This is the new one, the 33 rounder. Doesn't have the holes in it. This does have little mold marks and looks about the same. Good. Ran it flawlessly. Alright, so now the moment of truth. The 50 round drum. You can load these a little over 50. Don't do it, you're going to probably jack up the spring. I did notice this does not have steel feed lips that I could tell. When I'm done shooting it, I'll look again. All 50. Yep. Alright, looks good. I want to pack this up and we'll be back at the house. Alright, so we're back at the house. Just a little after the video insight to let you know what I think. Start with the 17 rounder. Like I said, the spring around 5%, maybe just slightly higher, less tension than an OEM mag. But when you're looking at $7 online compared to $25, maybe even $20 for an OEM mag, if it works, it works. Use it for a range mag if you're worried about it. The 33 rounder, this was the new one. Ran flawlessly, no problem. I do think I'm gonna keep it unloaded until I actually plan on using it. Same thing with the 50 rounder. I don't see no issues with the 17s. And the one that I've had loaded for years, bought it after Sandy Hook, the spring is super weak. I did have a failure to feed. Either the angle was wrong because it was kind of like this instead of more angled towards the feed ramp. Just kind of went straight up into the chamber. It probably was the spring related issue. But other than that, if you're worried about it, like I said, range time, or just if you're into dumping some rounds. I did leave these magazines and everything just sitting out in the garage for right about 24 hours. It's a little later the next day, and this one is starting to rust. The others aren't showing any signs of rust on the bare metal. 50 round drum ran perfect. Didn't look at the range, but I'm going to check here. There is some steel reinforcement in the front. However, feed lips, I'm not seeing any unless it's actually in the plastic and the plastic's molded around it. Sort of looks like I see some metal. I can't quite tell. Actually, I think there is metal in there. It's just covered in polymer. But ran perfect. Can't complain. I think these were around $50 or so online. These are pretty close to 20-25 bucks a piece. If they work, run them. So there you go. New KCI mags work great. I especially push these 17 rounders. They're about as close to OEM as you can get for pretty much a third the cost. So there you go. We'll be seeing you.